Hello, everybody, and welcome to our kickoff for this year's New York City Teen Author Festival. We have coming to the city or living in the city over 110 authors who are coming over the next 7 days. This is our first event, the first time we've ever had an event at the Strand, so thank you for proving that people will come to a YA event here at the Strand. I will not list all of the events that are coming up, but you can find all of them at our website, which is nyctaf.com. And again, we have something every single night this week. Then on Saturday night, we have an event at McNally Jackson. And then on Sunday, we have our big signing with over 65 authors at Books of Wonder, right down the street at 18 West 18th Street, starting at 1 o'clock. But again, all of the listings are on the website, and probably at the very end, I will remind you once more. But tonight, we have a very, very exciting group of people. Whether they're manageable and wrangleable will remain to be seen. But I'm really excited because this is like the perfect group to kick everything off with. So please join me in welcoming Libba Bray, Barry Lyga, Len Vlahos, Tim Federle, Jenny Han, and Goldy Moldavsky. If you need a copy of your book, okay. We thought there'd be copies on the table, so we're now going to go get copies of our books. So, pay no attention. So what we are going to do is each of us are going to read a little bit from a book to the classical strains. Okay. We just ain't that kind of group, I'm afraid. Although Lib and I will be doing an interpretive dance to that music later. Yes, no, totally. Yes, so each of the authors will be reading a little bit from their latest book or some other thing they have written lately. We really have a great, great cross-section of YA tonight, which is very cool. But without further ado, we're going to start with Goldy and then move our way down here. I will not introduce everybody in turn. They've been introduced and they will tell you what they are going to be reading from. But we are starting with this kick-ass debut novelist, Goldy Moldavsky, who's written this book, Kill the Boy Band, which if you have seen me at all over the past few months, you know it is one of the loves of my life. It is awesome in a very, very dark, twisted Heather sort of way. If you are into that, you are going to love this book. If you would much prefer Nicholas Sparks, you probably won't like this book quite so much. But hopefully, if you're in this room, you're in the former category, not the latter. So without further ado, our first reader of the evening, Goldy Moldavsky.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. That was a great intro. Hi guys, I'm Goldy. I'm going to be reading from my debut book, Kill the Boy Band. Kill the Boy Band is about 4 fangirls who are obsessed with a British boy band called the Ruperts. And they decide that they're going to book a room in a hotel in New York City to try to see them. And the book starts with them having kidnapped their least favorite member of the group. So, yeah, it gets dark after that. Yeah, I'm just going to read a little section of them going to the hotel. The day of the Ruperts' Thanksgiving spectacular, even the city felt more alive than ever. I thought we'd miss the madness of the big parade since that was in Midtown and we were all the way downtown, but everyone who'd spent the morning perched on 34th Street must have migrated a couple miles south because the streets of Soho are buzzing with life. That is to say, more so than usual. There were people everywhere, shouts and car horns overloud and pulsing in my ears. For all intents and purposes, New York herself was an excited fangirl that day. And her heart, where I could swear everyone in the city was heading to or coming from, was the Rondac. It was the swankiest hotel in Soho, maybe the swankiest hotel in all of NYC. Even before everything went down later that night, when the hotel got bathed by helicopter beams from overhead and swarmed by hapless cops on the ground, the place was already crawling with chaos. It was the epicenter of all the action, and my friends and I were poised to make our entrance, my friends and I and Consuela. Check-in was at 3 p.m. and we got there just in time, but getting to the front doors was a trip, and not just because Apple's overnight bag was big enough to fit a person, literally. I'll come back to that later. The hotel entrance was congested with people, paparazzi, and a throng of girls just like us, except clearly much less dedicated in their standing, because while waiting outside in the cold for 7 hours straight until you see your idol had its merits, nothing beats shelling out for the keys to the castle. There was no point being a fan these days if you weren't willing to go the extra mile for your idols. It wasn't enough anymore to send them fan mail and kiss the posters above our beds. These days, you weren't a true fan until you engaged in Twitter death threats and endless stan wars. The fandom landscape was peppered with landmines, and there was no other way to navigate it but to walk until you hit one. You come out the other side a little crazier, yeah, but you're also stronger. You are a true believer. You will do anything for the object of your affection. Because the truth is, it isn't worth loving something if you aren't going to love it all the way. Apple told me a story once about a couple of girls she met in the pit at a show the Ruperts had at MetLife Stadium. Apple had gotten pit tickets too, which must have set her parents back a couple grand at least. But she said she was worried for most of the show that she'd have to go to the bathroom and lose her prime spot in front of the stage. These two girls next to her told her that they didn't have that problem. They were wearing Depends. No, you aren't a true fan until you've wept for your love, bled for them, threatened lives for them, relieved yourself in adult diapers at their concert without ever leaving the bone-crushing discomfort of your $2,000 piece spot. Because what else does it mean to be crazy about someone? Plus, being a fangirl was just fun. Aside from all the internet stuff with fics and GIFs and stan wars, there was fandom outside the internet too, like the times when Isabel and Aaron and Apple and I went for proper stock sessions, the times when the boys would whiz past us so quick that seeing them was only as brief as catching a whiff of something. I know that doesn't sound like much, but those few seconds of dizzy excitement were worth it, just for how alive they made you feel. Tingly and jittery and crazed in the best way, a natural high, truly. Even the anticipation that came with waiting for them was part of the fun. It was butterflies, the best kind. We might see the boys and we might not, but the hours in between spent waiting or racing down streets or investigating, it was fun. We filled Instagrams and Twitters with it. We formed lasting friendships. We were part of something. Once, Isabel and Aaron and Apple and I had our picture in Us Weekly. We were behind the barricades across the street from the Late Show studio as the boys made their way in. We were screaming and we were happy. We were the barricade girls. Coming to the hotel now was only the tip of the iceberg compared to some of the crazy things other people had done. If you really thought about it, we were the rational ones. And for one night, we would be sleeping under the same roof as the Ruperts. My feelings on the matter could best be summed up with lyrics from the Ruperts' hit, I'm So Excited. Yeah, 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 I'm so excited. Yeah, 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 tonight is the night.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, it is your turn. You're admiring. So.
I was just wonderful. That was wonderful. Hello, my name is Tim Federle, and this is my first YA reading ever. Previously, I've written middle school novels. I thought I got booed. He's actually just a child. My first review. It's like school library journal, downstage right. I previously have written for middle schoolers, and I also write cocktail recipe books. So people are either like running around screaming or they're drunk. So this is a great crowd. I appreciate this crowd for just being sort of, and again, no heckling, young man. This book, The Great American Whatever, comes out in a couple of weeks. It's my debut YA novel. It's very autobiographical. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as a kid who was obsessed with musical theater, and I moved to New York City to be a dancer. And so Quinn, the protagonist of this book, is obsessed with movies and wants to be a filmmaker when he grows up. 6 months before the book starts, his older sister is killed in a car accident, which is based on an event that happened at my school with a friend from my drama club. So, but it's a comedy, so feel free to laugh. Gotta find a way to hook that. So I'm just gonna read from the top of chapter 1. Chapter 1, I don't consider myself to be precious necessarily, but give me air conditioning or give me death. Maybe the only thing worse than a Midwestern winter is a Midwestern summer, especially when your AC is broken. We are going on our second straight week of record-breaking highs here. This is the universe's way of showing it has a sense of humor, since I am personally going on my 6th straight month of record-breaking lows. I have got to get an air conditioner. I actually say this out loud just to hear a voice, anyone's voice, really, these days. I have seriously got, I say again, crawling to the side of the bed and tricking my body into standing upright, to get a new air conditioner. And then, a little louder, I am requesting a new air conditioner from the universe. Like if I say it enough times, the air conditioning fairy will arrive. You never know. I give it 20 seconds. Alas, no fairy. Other than, you know, me. I dare my feet to walk me to the bathroom so I can take a whiz, and then I lope back out to the bedroom, and all of this cardio makes me hot enough to formally debate cooling off options that don't involve leaving my room. I would remove my clothes, but I'm already wearing only my lucky boxers, and every time I take them off these days, I'm like, what is so wrong with me that I'm almost a senior and I still haven't been naked with another person? Great, see? Now I'm even hotter. I keep my boxers on and move to the next option. The mini fridge that Mom got me 2 birthdays ago isn't quite big enough for me to comfortably lay my head inside. Believe me, I've tried. And if I took out my broken AC and cracked the window, I'd have to confront the reality that I might hear, like, birds, or worse, the merry squeals of neighborhood children, and who has the stomach for that kind of unannounced joy at this hour? So I go low-tech, slumping into my beanbag chair and fanning myself with a takeout menu. That is when some sweat rivulets drip from my elbow onto the floor, and not just that, that wouldn't be so bad, but my sweat hits a random page of an application for this lame student filmmakers competition. Apparently, I never got around to completing the application last fall, let alone sending it in. I can't seem to finish anything these days except dessert. I kick the form under my desk and decide to sneak downstairs and just stick my face in the freezer for a minute. Hey, maybe it'll shrink my pores at the same time. The school counselor calls that kind of thing multitasking, which she also claims is a dangerous myth. No, really, this is an actual hand-to-God quote. Multitasking is a dangerous myth, Mr. Roberts. She always calls me Mr. Roberts, probably as mildly embarrassed to say my first name as I am. Can't blame her there. But, you know, the counselor was dead wrong, because as she was yammering on that day about how there's no such thing as multitasking, I was nodding and making earnest faces and imagining how incredible it would be if the school was hit by a freak comet. I was, you know, multitasking. Obviously, this was all before I stopped attending classes altogether. Mom is downstairs on the wicker couch in our sunroom, snoozing, as always. I tiptoe by and open the freezer, hoping some popsicles will have magically appeared, only to find a buttload of healthy choice meals. Open question, is it still a healthy choice if you have 3 of them in one sitting? Because that is how many are scattered around Mom's feet right now. She has really let herself go. See, Mom sort of eats her feelings, and this year has been nonstop feelings. The difference between us is that I can basically demolish a large pizza in under 15 minutes and actually lose a few pounds if I'm also worrying about my future while chewing. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Jenny.
I forgot that we said that you weren't gonna do that. Like David, yes, waiting for my intro. Hi. I'm gonna quickly, you guys just like wave, and I'm gonna Snapchat because I had to like spice up my story today. Say hi, guys. We're at the Strand. So, I'm Jenny Han.
I'm a millennial.
I'm just gonna publish that. Okay, putting the phone away. Hi, I'm Jenny Han. I'm the author of the Summer I Turned Pretty series, as well as To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and this is a sequel. P.S. I still love you. I'll just tell you, I'm gonna read a little bit of this, but just so you are on the same page. The first book is about a girl who writes love letters to boys when she's trying to get over them, and they are just for her eyes only, and she just pours her heart out onto the page, and then she seals it up and she puts it in a hat box that her mom gave her, and that's it. But then all of her letters are sent out, and a lot of ghosts come back from her past to haunt her. So there's a romance in it. There's a lot of stuff. I hope that's enough to get you on the page. So it ends, I guess, ambiguously romantic. Not in the best place for her. So I'm opening up just at the very beginning of P.S. I Still Love You. Dear Peter, I miss you. It's only been 5 days, but I miss you like it's been 5 years. Maybe because I don't know if this is just it, if you and I will ever talk again. I mean, I'm sure we'll say hi in chem class or in the hallways, but will it ever be like it was? That's what makes me sad. I feel like I could say anything to you. I think that you felt the same way. I hope you did. So I'm just gonna say anything to you right now while I'm still feeling brave. What happened between us in the hot tub scared me. I know it was just a day in the life of Peter for you, but for me it meant a lot more. And that's what scared me. Not just what people were saying about it and me, but that it happened at all. How easy it was, how much I liked it. I got scared and I took it out on you, and for that I'm truly sorry. And at the recital party, I'm sorry I didn't defend you to Josh. I should have. I know I owed you that much. I owed you that much and more. I still can't believe you came and that you brought those fruitcake cookies. You look cute in your sweater, by the way. I'm not just saying that to butter you up, I mean it. Sometimes I like you so much I can't stand it. It fills up inside of me all the way to the brim, and I feel like I could overflow. I like you so much I don't know what to do with it. My heart beats so fast when I know I'm gonna see you again. And then when you look at me the way that you do, I feel like the luckiest girl in the world. Those things Josh said about you, they weren't true. You haven't brought me down, just the opposite. You've brought me out. You gave me my first love story, Peter. Please just don't let it be over yet. Love, Laura Jean. Chapter 1. I should say, so that letter is the first one she actually wrote with the intention of someone actually reading it, which is sort of a big first for her. Kitty's been a little complainer all morning, and I suspect both Margot and Daddy are suffering from New Year's Eve hangovers. And me, I've got hearts in my eyes and a letter that's burning a hole in my coat pocket. As we're putting on our coats, Kitty's still trying to weasel her way out of wearing a humbook to Carrie and Uncle Victor's. Look at the sleeves. They're 3/4 length on me. Unconvincingly, Daddy says, they're supposed to be that way. Kitty points to me and Margot. Then why do theirs fit, she demands. Our grandma bought the humbooks for us the last time she was in Korea. Margot's humbook has a yellow jacket and an apple green skirt. Mine's hot pink, with an ivory white jacket and a long hot pink bow with flowers embroidered on the front. The skirt is voluminous, full like a bell, and it falls all the way to the floor. Unlike Kitty's, which hits her right at her ankles. It's not our fault you grow like a weed, I say, fussing with my bow. The bow is the hardest thing to get right. I had to watch a YouTube video multiple times to figure it out, and it still looks lopsided and sad. My skirt's too short, too, she grumps, lifting the bottom. The real truth is, Kitty hates wearing a humbook because you have to walk delicately in it and hold the skirt closed with one hand or the whole thing comes open. All the other cousins will be wearing them and it will make Grandma happy, Daddy says, rubbing his temples. Case closed. In the car, Kitty keeps saying, I hate New Year's Day, and it puts everyone but me in a sour mood. Margot's already in a semi-sour mood because she had to wake up at the crack of dawn to get home from her friend's cabin in time. There's also the matter of that maybe hangover. Nothing could sour my mood, though, because I'm not even in this car. I'm somewhere else entirely, thinking about my letter to Peter, wondering if it was heartfelt enough, and how and when I'm going to give it to him and what he'll say and what it will mean. Should I drop it in his mailbox? Leave it in his locker? When I see him again, will he smile at me, make a joke of it to lighten the mood? Or will he pretend he never saw it to spare us both? I think that would be worse. I have to keep reminding myself that despite everything, Peter is kind and he is easygoing and he won't be cruel no matter what. Of that much I can be sure. What are you thinking so hard about? Kitty asks me. I barely hear her. Hello? I close my eyes and pretend to be asleep, and all I see is Peter's face. I don't know what I want from him exactly, what I'm ready for, if it's boyfriend, girlfriend, heavy-duty, serious love, or if it's what we had before, just fun and some here and there kisses, or if it's somewhere in between, but I do know I can't get his handsome boy face out of my mind. The way he smirks when he says my name. How, when he's near me, I forget to breathe sometimes.
Thank you, David. Hi, I'm Len Vlahos. I am also here with a sequel. This is Scar Girl, the sequel to The Scar Boys. Scar Boys is, just to get you on the same page, is the story of a badly disfigured kid who finds his way through the world playing in a punk band. It's set in the 80s. I had no intention of writing a sequel, and I was doing an event, and an 8th grade teacher pulled me aside and said, I have to ask you something. So she goes, at the end of the book, is Cheyenne, the bass player character, is she pregnant? I said, what? She said, well, she sleeps with Johnny, the leader of the band, and Harry, the protagonist, says he loves her, and she throws up randomly on his shoes. Is she pregnant? I was like, oh. So I wrote a sequel. So this opens, this book does open when you find out Cheyenne, the character of Cheyenne, is pregnant. She keeps the pregnancy a secret because for a variety of reasons, keeps it completely secret for about 16 weeks, and she feels the baby move and she decides she's going to keep it. And the next morning she wakes up with cramps and she's bleeding. And her sisters rush her to Planned Parenthood to get some medical help, and we're picking this up about a third of the way through. So this is Cheyenne Bell. The doctor's room was cold, not just the temperature, but the aura too. Sometimes a place can just give off waves of coldness, you know? I was told to take off my clothes, put on a paper-thin gown, and lie down on the examination table. I noticed that the cushion on the table was graying with age and cracking at the seams. The woman waited for Agnes to finish filling out the forms and took the clipboard back. The doctor will be right in. She left. Are you doing okay? Agnes whispered while we waited for the doctor. I wasn't doing okay. I was still bleeding. My gut felt like someone was trying to wring it dry like a washcloth after a shower. And I was suddenly hit with a thought that I had no idea how we were going to pay for any of this. Agnes, who, like I said, is the most mature one of us, must have read my mind. Don't worry about the money, she said. I have a lot saved. You can pay me back. I can give you some too, Teresa said. I didn't think Teresa had any money, and I didn't think she really wanted to give it to me, but Agnes's generosity had shamed her into making the offer. Anyway, it didn't matter. They had both offered it, and it calmed me down, at least a little bit, and it made me love my sisters more than I ever had before. Then a new woman came in, this one wearing a white lab coat. I'm Dr. McCartney, she said. You must be, and she looked down at the clipboard, Cheyenne. I was surprised that the doctor was a woman. I've been so trained to think of doctors as men that it never occurred to me that this doctor would be anything else. It made me happy. Yes, I said. It's a nice name, so tell me what's going on. She was young, and she had dark brown hair that was pulled back in a ponytail, and charcoal-colored bags under her eyes, almost like she'd gotten beaten up. I'm pregnant, and I think something's wrong. I told her as much detail as I could about the bleeding and the cramps. Okay, are you a patient of the clinic, or do you have another OBGYN? This is my first trip to a doctor. Concern etched itself into the corner of her mouth. How long ago was your last period? I don't know, like 3 or 4 months ago. Dr. McCartney froze and looked from me to Teresa. Are you sure? I knew enough to be embarrassed about not having come to the doctor sooner, so I just hung my head and nodded. The doctor, who was probably used to seeing dumb little girls like me, forced a smile. Okay, then, let's see what we're dealing with. She pulled a rolling stool up next to the examination table and grabbed a plastic tube of Vaseline. This is going to be a bit cold. She squirted a bunch on my stomach, and it was cold. It made me flinch, which made me hurt. With my shirt off, you could see the barest hint of the bump that was my baby trying to push its way out of my belly. The doctor took out this flat, black paddle thing, which was hooked up to a machine with what looked like a telephone cord, like one of those things they use to start your heart when it stops. Seeing that freaked me out, but the paddle wasn't for hearts. It was for sonograms. Agnes, Teresa, and I watched a grainy black and white TV monitor as the doctor moved the paddle all around my stomach. The room was quiet, and my attention wandered from the monitor to the doctor's face. Every muscle in her jaw and neck had pulled itself tight, and her forehead was scrunched. After one last go-around with the paddle, she bit her lower lip, pushed the stool back, and looked at me. What? I asked. The doctor put the paddle back in its holder and took my hands. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm sorry, Cheyenne, she said, choosing her words carefully. There's no heartbeat. You're having a miscarriage. One of my sisters gasped. I'm not sure which one, and at first, I didn't know why. Dr. McCartney kept holding my hands and watching, waiting for me to catch up. I did. No heartbeat. My baby was dead. A little heavy, sorry.
Hello, I'm Barry Lyga. This is After the Red Rain, and I won't be giving you any setup because I'm just going to start at the beginning. So, just like if you were reading it yourself, unless you start in the middle, you're one of those people. The clank and rattle of what he thought of as the system had long since faded into mere background noise to Gus. Or maybe he was just going deaf. He was certainly old enough, beyond old enough for it. In any event, it didn't matter. He was the only one tending to the system, so he was the only one to talk to. And he'd gotten bored with himself a long, long time ago. Stooped and twisted with age, nearly 50 years if he remembered correctly, and almost unheard of longevity, he limped around the chamber with only himself for company. The system was a series of belts, tubes, pulleys, and wheels arranged in a circuitous route through a long chamber. It began at an inclined chute at one end and wended its clacking, whirring way through the chamber to the opposite end. The system was all about bodies. Tall, short, thin, fat, young, old, frail, robust, every color and shade decreed by nature or by God, take your pick. The bodies wound through the system day and night, hauled along as machines snapped and plucked at them, stripping them of clothing, jewelry, and all the other accoutrement of the living world. They entered the system as they died. They left it as they'd been born, naked and alone. Gus monitored the system. He attended to its needs. Though he had his suspicions, he didn't know where the bodies came from or where they went. Long ago, he'd decided it was best simply to be grateful he wasn't one of them. But this day, a sound came to him, pitched high above the muted rumble of the machinery. At first, he thought it had to be his imagination. Then he thought it must be his ears finally giving up the ghost after so many years of abuse. He scrabbled at one ear, then the other, with his little finger, digging around. The sound persisted, high-pitched and abjectly terrified, and definitely alive, not mechanical. He peered around the chamber, seeking the source of the sound. In the echoing confines of the system, it was difficult to pinpoint a specific noise. Standing still, he listened intently, rotated, and took a few steps. Paused again to listen, willing the sound to become louder. Miraculously, it did. It rose to a blood-curdling howl. He rushed to the tunnel that opened into the system. The noise had come from there. He knew it. He gaped at what he saw. He had worked the system as long as he could remember, most of his life, really, decades. He'd never tried to count the bodies that came through, and even if he had, he would have given up tallying them long ago. But this, he knew, was the first time he'd ever seen a living one. A baby. A tiny, defenseless baby lay on a series of grinding cylinders that bore the bodies into the system. She, for she was naked, squawked and squalled, waving one pudgy fist in terrified indignation, kicking her chubby legs. She was stuck. As she'd slid down the chute, her left shoulder had been caught in the gears of the machinery. It pinched there, purple going black, and she howled. Sometimes bodies got stuck like this. Gus had tools to break them loose. But such tools were for dead bodies, not living ones. And he froze again for an instant, unsure what to do. She cried out again, her face going purple now. There was no time to hit the emergency shutdown switch. She would be ripped to shreds before then. And besides, hitting the switch would mean questions, and Gus knew now was not the best time to have questions when he had no answers. Wincing in sympathetic pain, he tugged at her, gently at first, and then, finally, with all his strength when gently didn't suffice. With a yowl of pain, she came free from the machine, leaving behind an inch-wide strip of flesh from high up on her neck to her shoulder. Bright red blood spilled, and Gus nearly lost his grip on her as it flowed down to his hands, making her slippery. Shush, shush, he cooed almost by instinct. A baby. When was the last time he'd seen a baby? Well, a living baby. Husha, husha, he tried, and still she wailed. He couldn't blame her. He knew what he should do. He knew his job. Bodies came into the system, and bodies went through the system, and bodies left the system. His job was to make sure everything ran smoothly. And while he'd always assumed the bodies would be dead, and the bodies had always been dead, no one had ever specified dead. He should put her on the rolling cylinders and let her leave the system as everyone else did, to go wherever they went. She screamed and whimpered, and her blood spilled. Gus chewed at his bottom lip. It had been so long since he'd cried that he didn't realize he was doing it until the first fat tears splashed onto her round little belly. Husha, husha, he whispered, bouncing her lightly. Husha, husha. That ain't gonna heal on its own. Sorry, no. But I think old Gus can do what he can do. He carried her to his workbench and swept his tools aside. The bench was dirty and scarred with age, but better than whatever lay beyond. He set her down and began rummaging in his toolbox, muttering to himself. Fishing line, fishing line. He hadn't fished since he was a boy, and even then the rivers had been dead. But the line came in handy for a number of tasks, so he always kept a supply. He dug it out now and then found a needle from the kit he used to repair his clothes. This ain't gonna feel so good right now, he warned her, threading the needle with the fine, light filament. But it'll feel better later, I promise. He took a deep breath, he held her down, and began to sew.
Dangerous to be a baby around here.
Hello. Well, thanks for being here. First of all, I assume there's nothing good on TV. But thank you for being here, and thank you to the Strand for having us. And also, y'all, this is Goldie's very first reading, so can we give her... My name is Libba Bray. I've written many books, the latest of which is Lair of Dreams. It's bite-sized, as you can see. Also makes a lovely book stop for your door. It's a part of the Diviner series, which is set in 1927. I like to work a theme. And my editor calls it Stephen King meets the Great Gatsby, which is why she makes the big bucks. I call it X-Files with flappers. So if you like things that are kind of spooky and political and funny, if you're a Buffy fan, you might enjoy it. And it's not like I have a kid to send to college next year or anything, so don't feel pressured into buying it at all. He just chose the most expensive school in the nation. But I'm actually not going to read from that today. I'm going to read from something I wrote this past week in honor of International Women's Day, which came up. I know, and I was like, yeah, I had such mixed feelings. And then I saw that Google had done this little video called One Day I Will, and it was filled with ladies all inspirational dancing and talking about how maybe they could be lady astronauts or soccer players. And then all of a sudden, I was like, all of my misgivings, it was like it snapped into place, like I was the Jason Bourne of feminism, and I was like, right, I got this, bitches. So I'm going to read that. I just want to say that if anybody here has a problem with language, then you're learning from the best. I just want you to know. You're going to love me. Okay. So this is called A Letter from Muffy Higginbottom, President of Delta Sigma Tau, on the occasion of International Women's Day. Dear sisters, OMG, it's finally International Women's Day, y'all. Holla! I know we've all been prepping for this day for like forever. I'm looking at you, Lakeisha. That Mary Shelley cosplay is tight. I seriously did not know that you could embroider kicked Byron's ass on a corset. Learning. It's kind of like the Olympics of women, only nobody gets a Wheaties box. Here at Delta Sigma Tau, we'd like to represent the American chapter of this special day. First of all, thanks to Ashley T, Ashley, and Tiff for the Amazeballs house decorations. The Ruth Bader Ginsburg toilet tissue cover is so on point. This morning, when I was changing my tampon, I got a little misty just knowing that the most badass of the Supremes was watching over my taint and its repro rights with just the right expression of don't even think of touching my Coke can, Clarence Thomas. Serious snaps, decorating team. # impressed. Okay, I know we are all super stoked for tonight's party, but first let's just DST handle some housekeeping matters for the super special day. Number 1, Delta Sigma Tau Witches for Equality. How's that spell coming along? The one that turns the current presidential candidates into ladies for a week? Holla if you can't wait to watch Marco Rubio pregnant, or Donald Trump passing a construction site in 4-inch heels, or Ted Cruz as an economically disadvantaged mother of 3 driving around for hundreds of miles trying to find an open Planned Parenthood clinic so she can find out if that weird pain down below is only a UTI or something worse like cervical cancer. While Ben Carson keeps stopping the car at Exxon stations to pray to his dashboard Jesus in hopes of tithing the lady hurt away. Lols. Anyway, let me know if I need to make a stop for more candles, my sisters. Keep up the great work. 2, Delta Sigma Tau goes to Hollywood. I know we're all in the bummer tank, TM, about the dismal representation of women in the dazzling world of movie making. And look, I totally get why it would be easy to imagine space alien westerns, comic book heroes and villains shaped like houseplants or BDSM Hannibal Lecter cosplayers come to life, dream landscapes and animated cities that morph into other equally inventive landscapes on a dime, people being sucked into video games to battle the forces of evil, and the entire Tolkien catalog, but not be able to fathom a world in which women play something other than hookers, moms, understanding wives and girlfriends, and strippers. And like it also totally makes sense that in the 87 years the Oscars have been around, only one woman has won a statuette for Best Director. I mean, blink and before we know it, another 87 years will fly by and it'll be time for a lady to grab the gold once more. Hashtag optimism. But just in case we want to man it to go just a little quicker, please see our Holly Ain't Just Wood team. Thank you. Esther, Haruka, Jennifer, and Jennifer, who are arranging a full-scale invasion of the Cinema Boys School via film school applications, mentorships, and solidarity. Our invasion doesn't have lasers or asteroid monsters, but we can totally imagine it. Complimentary film school baseball caps downstairs. Number 3. I've heard some grumbling about today's Google logo. One day I will. Ladies, come on now. Nothing inspires like an ill-defined quasi-Hallmark card meets up with people video about a pie-in-the-sky future date when we'll be recognized as humans who take up half the planet, especially when that video features ladies being all inspirational dancy while shaky illustrations of what might one day be flicker and taunt above their heads just out of reach. Let's not be haters, okay? And as I understand it, the original logo, Pam Grier as a gun-toting Foxy Brown under the hashtag "Where are my fucking equal rights, bitch?" was still in development. 4, OMG, I seriously cannot get over how cute our new Delta Sigma Tau tasers are. The bedazzling must have taken hours. Snaps for our talented taser team, Aboyami, Maria, Esfir, and Oksana. For those who didn't attend the Ezekiel 2517 seminar, you know what I mean. Here's the drill. When someone talks over you or explains what you do back to you as if you aren't currently double majoring in economics and poli-sci or, plays blurred lines on a date, you know what to do. Squad goals. Number 5. Beyonce, thank you, Lady Jesus. That is all. 6, our Slut Say What squad has been crazy hard at work. I swear, Benita, JR, and Weifang, you never sleep. Granted, it's a little like playing sexual agency whack-a-mole, trying to take on all the ways that we're shamed just for walking around in these particular meat sacks, but y'all have the energy of 12 Red Bulls. Anywho, you can pick up your "My Lady Business Is None of Yours" t-shirts on the dining room table beside the Janet Mock, Rachel Maddow, Malala, Nicki Minaj centerpiece for tonight's party. Thanks, Ryan. You have achieved greatness with the glue gun. Oh, and Sarah, for sure take one of those to your judgy mom. Telling you that nice girls don't show cleavage or they're just asking for it is super retro hater. It's 2016, Mrs. Lewis. WTF. 7, moving on. International Women's Day glossaries. I know there's some wiggly room about what certain words or phrases mean when they're applied to women, and this has everybody confused. Well, we at Delta Sigma Tau are nothing if not helpful, sisters. Can I get some snaps going? With the photocopying help of the awesome David at Kinko's, what up, David? You rock. We've put together a "no, actually, here's what that really means, we are not shitting you" glossary, which we aim to put in doctors' offices, schools, newsrooms, media centers, film studios, even hotel rooms in place of that pesky document that often gets misinterpreted. Sample entries include "bossy, aggressive, bitchy." That equals "stay in your lane or we'll shame you some more." "Angry woman," has both brain and mouth. "This is for your protection," oppression. "It's just common sense," oppression. "I don't think you understand," oppression. Also, you're an asshole. Calm down. Shit, she might be winning this argument. "Are you on the rag?" Here is my friend, Mr. Taser. Now, I've heard some grumbling about how today is only one day out of like 365, and while the knot is nice, maybe we could trade in a celebratory but relatively empty Twitter hashtag for like real progress, reproductive rights protections, passage of equal rights legislation, closing the pay gap, better child care and family leave policies, stronger litigation against gender-based violence, reducing gender-based poverty and homelessness, ending female genital mutilation, more and diverse representation in politics, government, film, music, sports, business, science, Fortune 500, top management, the world, period. Okay, I hear you. But I think you're forgetting that International Women's Day comes just once a year, y'all. It's like Christmas, but without any merchandising might or economic power. Like, you guys, this will all be forgotten by tomorrow. So let's break out those dance moves and party, okay? Just remember that no matter how you dance, even if there are little illustrated squiggles of lady astronauts and soccer players above your heads, somebody will post a comment somewhere saying that you gave them a boner and you should be ashamed. Mrs. Lewis, I am still looking at you. Oh, and also, it should go without saying, my sisters, you better fucking vote like your lives depend on it, because they do. Clear eyes, full hearts, tasers on stun, can't lose. Your president, maybe for real one day, Muffy Hart.
So what you mean is, no, just kidding. All right. As I do with every reading, and this will be no exception, this is Ninja. We have to take the Ninja picture. There are lots of you, which is great, which means we'll have to divide the room in half. So this half, come on, Ninja. All right, don't upstage him, please. All right, cool. All right, this half. Hey, look, Tim, you scared away the kid.
Known for that.
All right, so I'm going to do something that I don't often do, which is read from somebody else's book. So we had sort of a Spinal Tap drummer situation going on here, in that Jesse Andrews was supposed to read with us and then couldn't make it, and then Luann Rice very graciously said that she would sub in, and then she came down with pneumonia. So rather than risk the life of another author friend by inviting them to come here, I just decided that I will step into the breach. And what I'm going to do, Jesse actually luckily did have time to come here earlier, not today, and sign. They released his new book early. It comes out, I believe, in 2 weeks, but it is available here to buy, and you really should buy it because it's really awesome. And I was lucky enough with my author friends, A.R. Kaler and Andrew Kramer there, to read with him the past 2 nights, so I'm now going to do a mildly effective Jesse Andrews impersonation. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Yes, thank you. So The Haters is about a bunch of kids who play instruments who are sent to jazz camp where all the greats are, but they're not really the greats. And they kind of decide that jazz camp kind of sucks. So they decide to just break out on the road, 3 of them, and just leave their phones behind, which is crucial for the passage that I'm about to read, and go on the road and just be an indie band together, a trio. So this is where we pick up. Ash is the girl in the group, and it's really kick-ass. Corey is the best friend of the main character, and Wes is the main character who has some issues. And that is who I will be reading as. I feel like it should be much more neurotic to be Jesse. Like, I can't believe I have to follow Libba Bray. Oh my God, I don't, this book sucks, but if you want to buy it, I guess you can, but I can't believe I have to read this. Is that good? Yeah, okay. I did ask him if I could do this, by the way. By 3 a.m., we were across the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. I was still having trouble getting comfortable with the phone situation. So just go over the plan, I said. The plan is basically drive at random into the south. Ash nodded, not looking over at me. And show up at places without calling first. They'll let us play somewhere, she said. We all sat with this for a while. Corey's parents are going to have a massive panic attack when they find out he's missing and doesn't have his phone, I said. They'll be fine, yelled Corey from the back seat, sounding pissed. I felt bad for bringing it up, but it was true that this was going to cause them a possibly life-threatening panic attack. I don't know about fine, I said. They just need to chill out, he said. What's wrong with Corey's parents, murmured Ash, not looking away from the road. She drove between 72 and 87 miles per hour and had no philosophical issues with passing on the right. They're kind of clingy, said Corey finally. They don't want to give up control over your life, suggested Ash. Sure. I mean, yeah. Great. So what you have to do is take it from them. No, yeah, I know. That's what this is. You're taking control of your life for what sounds like the first time ever. Yeah, no, I know. And that's why I'm on board with no phones. They're never going to just give you control. They've been ruining your life since the beginning, and it makes them feel big. Yeah, muttered Corey, trying to get it to stop. Yeah. Ash, is that what your parents are like? I said. My parents stopped giving a fuck about what I did a long time ago, she said. Nice, I said. We were all quiet. Are they dead? Said Corey. No, said Ash. Then on instinct, I reached for a phone that was not there. It would be the first of literally thousands of times that this would happen. Ash noticed and kind of grinned. By 4 a.m., we were in Virginia and discussing band names. Ash wanted us just to be the Ash Ramos 3. That might be a little boring, I said. It's not boring, said Ash. It's classic. Yeah, it's sort of classic, but the problem is it's not memorable. It's just your name plus how many people are in the band. A band name needs something mysterious about it that makes you think, what even is that? Agree, called out Corey from the back seat. I guess we could just bill ourselves as Ash Ramos, said Ash. No. We need a band name. And we need a name where, if you've never heard of the band, the name makes you go, holy crap, I need to find out who this band is immediately. So give me a name like that. I knew this challenge was coming, and I was ready for it. But I pretended not to be so it would have more impact. Oh man, let's see, just off the top of my head, I mean, well, what about this? Air horse. Nope. I was dumbfounded at how quickly she dismissed air horse. Wait, I tried to reason with her. Come on, sit with it a second. Air horse, that's actually really good. Air horse is not good. Corey, air horse? But Corey was clearly influenced by the crazy swiftness with which Ash decided to hate on air horse. I guess I like the air part, said Corey doubtfully, but the horse part is making me wonder. Is each song going to be about a horse? I don't like horse songs. Okay, I said, horse songs aren't a thing. It's like how the name Band of Horses makes me imagine that all the members are horses, and the lead singer's voice is the voice of a horse. And you know, ugh, I hate thinking about that. It fucking sucks. Okay, that's idiotic. Ash, you seriously don't want to go see a band called Air Horse? Nope, said Ash. Look, I already know what that band is. That band is two pasty bearded men in skinny jeans. They both play vintage synthesizers and sing in falsetto. Their songbook is basically just 80s type ballads about how no one will fuck them because they're too sensitive. Immediately, it was impossible to think of Air Horse in any other terms. No, I said feebly, come on. Yeah, said Ash. Air Horse? Yeah, close your eyes. It's clearly two hipstery dudes. One of them has a curly Jufro like the guy who paints happy trees on public television. The other is a fat, pale redhead. His stomach is bulging out from under the bottom of a very small pink t-shirt with a Pegasus on it. That's Air Horse. And you'd never go to see them. We were quiet. Air Wolf? I tried. Yes! Shouted Corey. Airwolf is the same exact band, except maybe there's also an even fatter guy playing tenor sax, said Ash. Damn it! Shouted Corey. That's best case, mused Ash. Actually, Airwolf is probably just a third-rate metal band who found each other on Craigslist. Airwolf's probably like 8 bands already, so let's look them up, said Corey. Corey, you don't have your phone. There was a brief silence from the back seat. That's right, said Corey, trying to sound amped. And I am amped about not having a phone. Give me a name that describes a band I would actually want to go see, Ash told us, and we can go with that name. But I don't think you guys have one. I will accept all applause on behalf of Jesse Andrews. Please buy his book. Again, they're all signed over there. He did sign them. So it would just be awful if they were left with 100 copies remainder tomorrow before the book even comes out. That's like rude. So anyway, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask a round of questions of my author friends. Then I'm going to open it up for you guys to ask some rounds of questions. Then we will do the raffle, which hopefully you are all prepared for. And then we are going to sign like there's no tomorrow. But since Trump has not been elected yet, there is still a chance, at least, for tomorrow. So we will start with Goldy. Goldy, so Kill the Boy Band. I'm curious about what research you did to write this book.
Is this working? Is this on? Okay. I did not kill any boy band members, if that's what you were wondering. But I am a very passionate fangirl. I'm a very dedicated fangirl. And my sister, actually, when she was a teenager, she was obsessed with Enrique Iglesias. I don't know if you remember him. And
He'd be my hero.
yeah,
Baby.
one of those. So, well, we lived in Brooklyn. We grew up in Brooklyn, so we were always in New York. And whenever he would come into town, she would always go and try and find him because we lived in New York, and he always seemed to be in New York for some reason. And so, well, she would go and try to find him, and she really taught me everything I know about being a fangirl. Like, she would tell me like the side entrances to all like the studios, and she would say, make friends with the paparazzi because they'll tell you where they're staying. So, I mean, I did a little bit of that stuff because I'm a freak. And I'm really a huge geek about being a fangirl. Like, last year I was at BEA. I waited for like 2 hours online to get Libba Bray's autograph. Mm-hmm. And when I got up to her, I told her name sounded like library. That was my that was my big moment with Libba Bray.
Right. Please note the restraining order is for 10 feet, and this is 20 feet, so legally this is still allowed.
I'm on a panel with her now,
yeah.
So full
Pretty
circle.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Tim. I'm curious. So now you've plunged into the YA world. What was the initiation like? No, I'm curious. Yes, well, I'm curious about that, but we'll talk about that later.
It's off the record, David.
But no, one of the amazing things looking at your social media over the past few years is you've written this amazing set of middle grade books that started with Better Nate, whatever. And you've gotten some amazing reaction from kids, straight kids, but a lot of gay kids. And I'm just curious, when you start hearing about the impact that your books are having, like, how does that affect what you write? Like, do you think about that as you're writing a YA novel, or is that off to the side?
I try not to think about impact, only because I think you start to get in your head if you think about audience too much, though I do think I was surprised. The thing that surprised me about writing books for middle schoolers was how many adult readers I had. And if you think about it, it makes sense because, like, I wish 13-year-olds had credit cards, but they don't. And so you have to, like, get through to their librarians and the booksellers, and there's a lot of adult layers you have to get through in order to sort of reach a middle school audience. And so, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to write for young adults is because I was already writing for adults in a way. But I do get a lot of emails from you know, even like high school kids who said, I read Better Nate Than Ever, and even though it's not for me, I'm from this town where I was like the only boy in ballet class, or I get that email from like Utah a lot. And it's really moving to feel like you are, for a lot of them, the first book they've discovered that's like that. And by the way, oftentimes it's because of like a really cool librarian at the school or a local bookseller who kind of pulls them aside and is like, you, the boy who's dancing in the bookstore. I'm not going to make assumptions, but so yeah. So in that sense, you know, I hope to reach an audience who has enjoyed those books, but also is ready for something maybe a little more adult.
And what was it? You said it takes place in sort of the place of your adolescence. So what was it like going back there to sort of plumb your
Going back to
adolescent years
Pittsburgh?
again? Or no, just your adolescent years.
Oh, my
to think
adolescent
about
years.
them.
They're so at the I mean, I think I write for young people because I still feel like such a young person. You know, a lot of what I was always like the last kid picked for dodgeball. I was voted least likely. And so I just sort of think of high school as a time I barely got out of high school. I had like a 1.8 my senior year. I had no future other than the fact that I had seen the national tour of Cats, and I was like, you can get paid to be a cat. So, and in fact, I don't normally name drop, but one of the dance jobs I had was as a backup dancer for Enrique Iglesias at the Super Bowl. Not kidding. So my way to fiction, I think, is to sort of plumb all of the depths that I felt in high school, which in a lot of ways are still very close to the surface. As I sob.
I think you said you were a backup dancer for Christina Aguilera.
It was the same show. She was there. Christina sang a duet with Enrique, and they lip synced, and there's stories afterwards.
Right. I heard Beyonce.
Tony Braxton was also there, and so was Edward James Olmos. It was like the weirdest year ever. It was 2000, and Disney produced the Super Bowl, so they invited everyone who had ever been on ABC. It's a whole other...
So did you stand and deliver?
Yes, we'll leave it there.
Okay.
I tried to. I danced and delivered.
There you go. All right, Jenny. Let's talk about your time at the Super Bowl. No, one of the things I love the most about your novels, and I love many things about your novels, but one of the things I love the most is you clearly care so much about the characters, and the readers almost immediately care about the characters so much too. And it's not just the main character, that you really, at least I as a reader, sense that you know all of the characters, and you can sort of see the other points of view even when the main character is not seeing the other points of view. So I'm curious about how you do get to know your characters. Do you do anything to know them before you start writing, or do you get to know them as you're actually writing?
Well, thank you. It's really nice, David. I feel like for me, I don't really do any kind of like exercises that are like, favorite TV shows or any of that kind of stuff. I think it feels like sort of an excavation process for me where I tend to write not in order and just doing like little vignettes here and there. Sometimes it's just like a phrase or like a little piece of dialogue that I think of, and then it starts to kind of form. It's like the snowball is like getting bigger and bigger, and I just kind of keep circling the track until like I have like a bigger chunk. But it doesn't always reveal itself to me right away, and then it just keeps getting kind of like thicker as time goes on. But
and were there things that happened while you were writing the first book that sort of changed what you knew the second book was going to be?
Well, I didn't go into the first book thinking I was going to do two.
Okay.
It was kind of like, I think maybe 30% of the way in, I realized that my favorite so she writes 5 letters to 5 different boys, and I realized that my favorite one, which I wrote first, to me felt like I wanted more time to explore what that was. And so then I called my editor and was like, I want to do 2 books. And she was like, cool. But yeah, no, I didn't know what I was doing anyway. I never know what I'm doing. I never know what the end is going to be until like I'm almost there. So I guess it didn't change.
Okay. Cool. All right, and speaking of books that you didn't know you were going to write, I mean, now I realized, of course, now that I didn't even mention any books that I wrote. So my latest book, which you really should buy, even though I read Jesse's book, is called Another Day, and it's a companion to my book Every Day, which has been adapted for the screen by Jesse Andrews. Small world, right? So anyway, but when I was writing the second book, I was like, oh my God, there are things that I wish I could go back and change about the first book to make the second book much easier. So I'm curious, did you, in sort of going farther, did you inadvertently set any traps for yourself, or was it really easy to dive back into the world and use everything as backstory?
Well, so before that teacher made that comment to me, I wasn't being fully honest. I actually did sit down and try and write a sequel because I thought, hey, I had a young adult novel published. I should write a sequel. That's what you're supposed to do. And I got maybe 30,000 words into it, and 29,000 of them were just god-awful. So I put it aside and actually wrote something else. When I got around to doing it, I actually didn't have any sense that, oh, I wish I had done something different in Scarboys to set this up. I just sort of used it as a map. Once that germ of the idea of making the Cheyenne character pregnant was there, and it just sort of goes from there. And by the way, after that scene, it really, after that, it gets dark.
Oh, really? Yeah. Because that was really light. I was like, ready to sing a song there. Well, so what is it like to sort of plumb those depths and to write dark? I mean, like, do you, as you're writing, sort of fall into that mood, or are you able to separate yourself from what you're working on?
No, I totally fall into that mood, and I do kind of get into it and sort of live it. And I was probably a real dick to live with for a few months there. So, as opposed to what I'm just normally a dick to live with, but I was especially a dick to live with. So,
but for a very specific reason.
Okay. That's correct. So,
awesome. All right. Barry, I feel that like most of the time when we have these freeform Q&As with you, like my question is some variation on where do you come up with such dark and twisted shit, man? So I'm just going to come right out and just ask, where do you come up with such dark and twisted shit, man?
Well, this particular brand of dark and twisted shit, I cannot take responsibility for, because this was my first and so far only collaboration. I wrote this with Peter Facinelli, the vampire guy, and Rob DeFranco. And they actually came to me with the basic idea. They sort of had this idea for this world and some characters, and they didn't know what they wanted to do with it. Excuse me. And I said, oh, I probably wouldn't have come up with that on my own, so this might be kind of fun to sort of play in somebody else's yard for a little while. So that's where that came from. I don't know. I don't think of myself as like this dark and twisted person, but then inevitably when I'm sitting down, and I had lunch with my stepsister the other day, and I told her about a book I'm working on right now, and as I was describing it, I went, oh God, yeah, this is really messed up. and she went, and she just said, yeah, I figured it would be something like that, because she knows what I write. I don't know. I have problems, man. It's a cry for help, and I've been crying. It's been 10 years and 15 books, and no one has helped me yet.
Because we like the books. We're selfish. I mean, have you ever written something that's really freaked you out?
The book, I have a YA that comes out next year that is the first time where I'm doing a revision on it right now, and there's a chapter that I just can't look at again. I'm like, you know what? Sorry, editor, that chapter is going to stay exactly the way it was, because I physically cannot look at that chapter. And it's the first time that's happened to me. And I don't know if it's because I'm a dad now. I mean, I hope it's not, because, I hate those, when you get like rock stars or whatever who are awesome, and then they become dads and suddenly they suck. Or Eddie Murphy had kids and suddenly he was just like in The Adventures of Pluto Nash. Like, it's like, no, where's the raw guy? Where's the raw guy?
He wanted money. I mean, like that. I don't think that was it. But.
No, it's just, it happens to all these people, and I don't want to be one of those guys. Okay. So I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll see. All
right, and then finally, I happened to notice you have an advanced reader copy of another book.
I couldn't decide what I was going to read from, and then I saw that they were kind enough to have copies of this, and I thought, I should be a mercenary and sell some copies.
But what's coming next?
But this is coming out in August. This is The Secret Sea. It is a middle grade novel. It's set in New York, sort of, kind of. I will say no more. And it was inspired by Hurricane Sandy, a strange disease that only affects identical twins. This is a real thing. I didn't make it up. And a strange fact about 9/11 that most people don't know. And quantum physics.
Oh, of course.
So, it's like, yeah, you ask where the strange shit comes from. That's, those four things. I'm like, yeah, that's a book. So
awesome.
There you go.
All right, Libba, perfect segue. Can you talk about 19 of your favorite quantum physicists for us? In alphabetical
Don't say
order.
Rutherford. Don't say Rutherford.
So, Michio, Kako, and I.
Excuse me.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
I think people think that there perhaps might be a disconnect between the politics on your blog and writing historical fiction with a sort of horrific supernatural bent, but at the same time, that is not true. It's not true. I'm knocking down this straw man that I built. No, because I think one of the most interesting things about the Diviner series that you're working on is there is such incredible political subtext, and even though it is historical, it is extremely resonant and scarily more resonant every day for our time. So could you talk a little bit about sort of the parallels between the world that you're writing about in those books and what you're seeing today?
Wow, that was a beautiful setup. You made me sound smart.
Just say yes.
I'd like to call for a lifeline, David. Yes, I will happily talk about that. So the Diviners series was actually, I always say it's like a big Cobb salad of everything I love. It's like Hammer horror and Buffy and you know, so it's got like some X-Files feel to it. It's history. It's theater. It's glamour. It's all of that stuff. But what really kind of inspired it was that I was thinking, this was, you know, going back quite a few years. Woo! That's the flashback music, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's probably your ringtone. Going back many years, I was thinking about kind of post 9/11 America. This was during the Bush years, which now seem quaint compared to Donald Trump.
Remember those heady days?
Jeez. And so I was thinking about everything that had happened with Bush and Cheney, and I kept thinking about this quote that is attributed to Sinclair Lewis, but not definitively, which is, if fascism ever came to America, it would come, I think it's draped in a flag and carrying a cross. And I kept thinking about that, and it haunted me. And then I had gone to Germany to talk to high school students there. This was 2008, so it was and it was election cycle, so it was October. And all they wanted to talk about was politics. They wanted to talk about what was going on over here. And once they determined that I was not a George Bush fan, you know, because I was like, yeah, I grew up in Texas, and they're like, and I was like, no, I'm not a fan. We started talking about, you know, we really started talking about politics, and this one kid said, "Are you still proud to be an American?" And I was like, wow. That's pretty heavy. So I was really thinking about that, and I think that it's been really interesting for me to dive into the history of America, because I think that we have certain convenient illusions, we have certain narratives that we just grow up with, and certain assumptions that we grow up with, and the more you get into it, the more you see, oh wow, you know, when Donald Trump is talking about kicking Muslims out of our country, you can look all the way back to the Chinese Exclusion Act and see how horrible that was, and how that influenced then the Geary Act, and you know, and the Racial Integrity Act, and looking at American history with eugenics as well. And I mean, it's like thing upon thing upon thing that you just like, you pick up a rock and you're like, oh wow. So, but you know, also with laughs and lots of, you know, lots of spooky things. And I think that that's one of the things about horror, and why horror and politics merge so well, is because the monsters that we think we are fighting are never as scary as the actual monsters and the monstrous things that human beings do.
And on that note, I think questions from the audience, I mean, talking about monstrous things. We have time for a few, right? Yes, we have time for a few questions. That's a very enthusiastic question, so we must go there.
Well, Easter is the season of our Lord, so. I wish that I were, you know, smart enough to be able to say, like, why, yes, I've got this whole thing planned out. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know how I got here. I got here because Barry got me here, actually. So possible. It could happen. Anything could happen. Air horse could happen.
Air horse! It is true, though, that every single one of the beauty queens is in book 3, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does.
Totally. I can't wait for Miss Marilyn to start her stuff. All right. Other questions? Wow, we had one question. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so psyched for Civil War. Seriously, when the trailer came out the other day, my mother-in-law was in town watching the baby, and I went in the back and I turned on the computer and I'm like, ooh, trailer, and I watched it and I went, oh, and she came running back. She's like, what happened? I'm like, no, I was 12 years old for a second. I'm sorry.
Okay, so originally it was going to be about going to find Bucky.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to be
Okay, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something I rarely say when it comes to Hollywood. The people who have been doing the Captain America movies in particular, Winter Soldier, are making this movie. I will watch whatever they want to put on the screen. I trust them. When I saw Winter Soldier, I made my wife see Winter Soldier, and she was like, all right, I'll go see it with you. And she was riveted. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good movie. Like, you can get my wife who, when the X-Men came out, she said, they're aliens, right? I said, what? She said, well, but they all have superpowers, so they're from outer space, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I married this person? So I will trust they can do whatever they want. I'm going to see the hell out of that movie. So, yeah.
All right.
Yes, you're welcome.
I have no idea what was just said for the past 3 minutes.
I love doing that to him, by the way.
But I'm really amused that, like, a major cool thing revolves around somebody named Bucky. Let's go find Bucky, okay?
Hey, man, Bucky gave his life for his country, all right?
God bless Bucky! Anyway, yes.
Oh, hi, Brielle.
My question is, do you have any suggestions on how to fill in the missing parts? Because as a young writer, I write kind of like you do. I have broken scenes and they're not really connected. Do you have any suggestions on how to motivate yourself, or just how to figure out what keeps all the ideas?
In terms of motivating myself, I think the reason why I write things out of order and like in little snippets is because I do get easily bored, and I think that for me, my theory, motivating theory is doing the stuff that excites me the most. So it's like, having dessert first, and then once I think that it can feel really intimidating to have, like, you go, oh, okay, a book should be around, let's say, like, minimum 60,000 words or something, and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, I only have 15,000 words. But then when you keep slowly, doing the fun things that you want to do, then I think it sort of makes your confidence grow, because you see your word count going up and you just have more to work with. And I think for me, the unknown is what makes things feel intimidating. And so the more that you know, the more that you write down, the more that you'll understand what needs to happen. And so I think it's like whatever works for you, and that's what works for me. So it's just every time I open up my document, I'll look at the stuff I wrote before and I'll just kind of add a little more to it and just keep adding and adding. And, as soon as I'm done or bored with what I'm doing, I just go to the next thing and just keep doing that until I have a sizable chunk.
Yes.
So, David, you have some very famous collaborations, and Barry, you referenced your collaboration. So this question is for everyone, which is, who would be your dream collaboration?
Wow.
Libba Bray.
And my answer is always Libba Bray. And I was with Andrea Kramer at an event the other night, and we were asked this question, and she answered Libba Bray before I did.
I'm gonna fight for her.
Yes, I know. Well, see you later.
Totally making up for not getting asked to senior prom, you guys.
Others? Well,
I'll go J.K. Rowling, and then I would do sort of an offshoot thing for Cho Chang, like, like a whole. I think she got shortchanged. I feel so. I would love to come in on that.
excellent.
I don't know. Maybe Rebecca Stead. I'm a huge fan of hers, and we live in the same neighborhood, so I feel like if I run into her getting bagels, I'm like, oh my God, I love that flavor bagel too. We should write something. That's my way in.
I would say Prince.
He would die for you.
He's the beautiful one, but I would love to write a book with David.
Aww. I just want your extra time and your kiss.
I would probably say I have a good friend named Paul Griffin, who is an amazing author, and he and I have been talking about working on something together for literally years now. And whenever I'm ready, he's not. And whenever he's ready, I'm not. So someday the stars will align and we'll work together.
He's really great.
Well, at this point, my answer is moot.
Ah, yes.
The duck should come down from the ceiling now. If nobody here is old enough to get that joke. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Calm down. Get it from your blog post? Okay, good. Thank you. The best collaboration I've read in a long time was All American Boys by Brendan Kiley and Jason Reynolds, so I would love to work someday with either one of those guys.
All right, Barry did a really important thing for me, which is great. I so haven't done Paul's birthday video yet. It's a surprise, so don't tell him. So we're gonna wish him a happy birthday, all right? So, all right, should we sing or do you want to just say happy birthday, Paul? Sing, all right, so happy birthday to Paul, ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Paul. Happy birthday to you. All right, so there was a question back there.
Yes, I will.
No pressure.
I will adopt you, and I will say, do you want to meet? Are you asking me like what happens in the treehouse, like right after the book ends, or do you mean more like? I don't know. I mean, for me, like when I finish something, like usually, I still imagine them sort of like continuing on, doing their own thing, and I'm. It's almost like that dollhouse is like awake, and then I'm like not there anymore, like making them move around, but they're still doing their own stuff. And I don't know, I think that John will have a good life. He you know, who knows? I mean, that's what, to me, I think that's what part of what I loved about writing those books was that, you know, it ends junior year and there's still like a lot of time on the clock. You know what I mean? Like I think there's so many possibilities of what can happen. I think what I wanted to focus on was this first love story for her and what it meant for her and how it helped her kind of like grow up in a lot of ways. But I also think that there could potentially be a lot more stories for her. So who knows?
Now, you're not just saying that because you're going to have to live with her for the rest of your life. Just making sure. All right, we have one more question. All right, oh my goodness. All right, she has the purple hair. You have to go with the person with the purple hair, right? I mean, it's like the rules of YA readings. Yes.
I'm just going to shout because y'all can hear me, right? Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well,
you do realize the inherent problem of that question, right? You can hear me, right? No.
No, you explain it to me later. Do you have pictures? Okay. That is wow. That's a great question. It's really tough. I would say, you know, I'm gonna punt a little bit by saying that I got to hear Toni Morrison speak a few weeks ago, and it was every bit as amazing as you might think it was. And somebody had asked her what she learned from her characters, and she said sovereignty, which was like she made the word sound 20 times more beautiful than it even is, and it is a great word. And so I would say that I've learned something from each of those characters, but in terms of just pure, unadulterated fun, there was something wonderful about writing Taylor Renee Crystal Hawkins, Miss Texas from Beauty Queens, because there's something about her that is pure id. And I think that was, and also having grown up in Texas with a lot of beauty queens, it was really super fun to get to kind of riff on that. But I would be curious, do we have time to just ask everybody on the panel what was a favorite character they got to write?
Yeah.
This will say more about me than it should, I guess, but Billy Dent, the serial killer father of my Eye Hunt Killers series, he's just, like you said, pure id. It's just, you can write anything and do anything, and it's okay because he's a serial killer.
I have a book coming out in January called Life in a Fishbowl, and one of the characters is an anthropomorphized brain tumor. So, and it is actually a comedy, I swear. And it was crazy fun to write. It really was.
Didn't Danielle Steele just do that in her book? God, so cliche.
She wishes.
Well, for me, it was definitely Earl from Earl and the Dying Girl. Oh, wait. I never have a good answer for this question because I really do like all of them, and usually the most recent one. So I have a book coming out that I wrote with Nina LaCour called You Know Me Well. That comes out June 7th. And the main character, that Mark, my character, I really love him because I put him through hell in a way that I identify with. So I'm going to say him, but with all due respect to everybody else, especially Tiny Cooper, who right now is being like, you bitch, it's me.
I'll go with Ty for Kitty from To All the Boys I've Loved Before and Reeve from Burn for Burn.
There's this British choreographer I wrote in the Nate books that was sort of based on somebody who sort of terrorized me on a show I did once, so that was really fun to write.
Well, everyone in this book is pretty much insane, but I think there's a girl called Apple in this book, and she's the most passionate fan, I think, and I just really love her.